Hey, welcome everyone. It's me again. This is your host, Rashawn Warren, the host of CIME. Today, we're going to be talking about resilience in action. And we have Ayauna Barnes on the net today. So I'll give you a quick breakdown. My earlier career in the Army, when I was a second lieutenant back in the day, I was in 144 ADA and I came across this individual full of life, vibrant, ain't taking no mess. We had a little run-in also, but throughout that time, we became friends and started to appreciate the things that she has to offer to the world. So with that being said, let's bring Ayauna Barnes in.
Hello. I was going to bring up, by the way, that run-in, but I'm good. You got that up? I always think that Charlie Battery moment, and we've really come pretty far. So
that was a significant moment in my career. You know, I'm gonna tell you what. So I didn't want to go down to leave Coonson and go down there anyway. And the bus was getting ready to leave, and you was holding us up. And I was like, if she asked one more question, as soon as you said something and we missed the bus, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make this painful for everybody.
Yes.
I don't even remember the exact question I asked you. That's how traumatic that was to me. I said, hey, so what is the chemical dispersion rate of I remember. but you know, that day, I'm not gonna lie. That day I was like, I am not feeling this lady. But but after that, we worked together on the back end and I had a lot of respect for who you were and the way that you conducted business. So tell us about yourself.
I am a retired Army veteran. I'm also 100% disabled. So I retired medically just shy of about 18 years. And I retired in 2014. I'm the wife of a veteran. I've always been a dual military family. I got 6 children. The youngest is 13. The oldest is actually 28. Yeah. And the 4 younger are girls, so that has been its own experience. And you know, it, I mean, what about myself? I mean, I guess that's it. I mean, I currently am interning at a nonprofit called Soldiers Angels. And I use that as a platform to discuss about behavioral mental health and just issues as women who have served, as a Black woman who has served. I dabble in a little bit of if everything in terms of being an advocate and being able to share my story.
Oh yeah, so it's a good breakdown, but I want to go to one point that you said. So a Black woman who has served. Tell me about that.
Well, to be honest, it's hard being a Black woman, especially because we give birth to Black young men who become men, and with a lot of things, how we're looked at. It's difficult as a Black woman who has served in any position of authority. I believe most can relate because, in truth, we've entered a field that already is primarily male dominated. And throughout my career, in these 17 plus years, I learned that I had to be the most effective I could be as a leader was to dispel this idea of having to serve under a Black woman of authority. And so I bring that up because it really defines our careers, regardless of our successes. And of course, our downfalls, we have this responsibility, and it's still a culture, unfortunately, that, really doesn't. I mean, you're either amazed by that Black woman, but you don't put them all in that same category. It's like she is one of someone other than what has been created. This idea that, we're not effective leaders, we're not good leaders. Um, and so that was my whole experience. 'Cause out of 18 years, I spent 16 of them as a non-commissioned officer.
Yeah, I mean, the craziness about it, in my opinion, is that at the end of the day, that usually that category even exists. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So like a leader is a leader as a leader, as one would
Right.
say. But you had to live 18 years in the military, being like, well, I'm this black lady who's a leader, right? And
Indeed.
you feel like you had to do extra things in order to be successful. I think that's something that all leaders need to take into consideration
Indeed.
when they're leading their formations, that people actually feel like this. At some point through the interview, I might jump into something like that because I had a weird experience with someone asking of how to deal with um, an angry black woman.
Hmm.
It was kind of weird, but
Right.
we'll go ahead and I digress, and we'll touch base on that if we have time before we get out here, or then maybe that's another episode. So hey, I'm glad you're on here, and we're able to cover the bases. I think we're going to get hot into this. We're going to go to our first commercial break, and then we're going to jump into the first segment of our interview.
All
Hi,
right.
Joel Mauer, founder of Dink Ninjas. Dink Ninjas was dreamed up and started right here in Austin, Texas, a dynamic pickleball community. We arm pickleballers with the paddles, apparel, and accessories to dink like a ninja. Dink Ninjas is dedicated to supporting mental health awareness and cancer research. Shop our full lineup at dinkninjas.com.
All right, so we're back. So I think your story of who you are, like, it's highly incredible. You've been serving as a dual military spouse. You're raising 6 kids. How did you balance your career and your family?
Uh, well, to be honest, I had a village to help, raise those children. I was always fortunate that my mom, she had put aside her life so that she can provide normalcy to the kids. Because both of us got up every morning and did PT and left home and did all those things. So juggling that, I can say, probably wouldn't have been possible without that type of support. And an amazing husband who definitely brought balance. We were able to do it because we handle things differently. He's more analytical. I'm more fanciful. At work, my mom was very neutral, but she was mom, and without her, that it just wouldn't have been a possibility. But to balance both, we ensured that when we were home and when we had time off before all the health issues, that we used it to its fullest. And we also explained to them very early, very young in their lives about what our jobs were, what that meant, and why it would affect them, and how they were going to be different from others. So they had already really, at a very young age, braced for that storm. And so they were understanding in that.
Yeah, I would guess that got to be so hard, because there's a lot of military families out there like you that's trying to make that hustle work, and they might not necessarily have that extra person, that village, as you mentioned, and
Right.
and I can understand also. Like, I grew up in a family, 6 of us, include my mom, but it was just my mom. So she was hustling by herself, but I was that other guy because I was the oldest. So definitely identify with you, and I definitely know how hard it is. And I know for you out there that's watching that's in that situation, that village, if you can establish it, you definitely gotta try, and it's not easy, I assume. So, but you served in all of these different positions within the Army, like you got all of these awards when I was looking at your stuff. So what does that really mean to you? Like, what did you garner from, like, all those positions you served in, and then being recognized for those positions that you served in?
Um, I guess it allowed me to understand our purpose on a larger scale. Being able to be in several different units doing very distinct things. I was the least likely person to have joined the Army or joined the service, to be honest. I was the quintessential California, wanted to be an actress, cutting school, at 9 to go perform, to being in, this service that initially I joined for, to take care of my family. But being able to serve in different positions, I learned really quickly that I had a passion for uh, the Army. I had a passion for our country and serving, and those different perspectives. It helped me to understand where we land um, in what we do, and how just really how important it is to serve in the positions where you're making decisions that affect others. So having so many different positions, I got to see a larger piece of the pie, if you will, and was able to take what I learned from serving in a specific unit or doing a very specific function to the next. I think is what led to those accolades. By the time I was giving getting impact awards or leadership awards, it's really having combined all those things I've learned, all those different standard operating procedures for a battery or a troop, or working at corps and echelons above. All those things gave me an opportunity to hone who I was as a soldier, as a leader, and especially in what my capabilities were. So those accolades didn't mean much to me. I did appreciate those. Even now, I don't look back on the awards. My greatest achievement is the impact I've made in other people's lives. That is what that paper is to signify. But it was always much deeper than that.
Oh yeah, so fully agree. And I also say my recollection of you in the 3 shop in Fort Hood, Texas, now Fort
Hmm.
Cavasso. I remember you as a staunch leader. I remember you as a go-getter. I remember you as pushing the envelope, not backing down. That's how I remember you. Well, I would say that your service to the country was immaculate. But what was all those years combined?
Hmm.
What do you think was those top lessons that you learned that you start applying and teaching other people, coaching other people, mentoring other people? What lessons did you learn from there?
I learned about being authentic. Um,
Hmm.
that's really where I know we had said briefly about haters and joking about that, but
Haters.
that exists, right?
Mhm.
But I learned that being my most authentic self meant that I be humble enough to seek guidance. Um, I found or sought after leaders. I didn't make it about it having to have a woman mentor or a male mentor. That wasn't the issue. I wanted to know, how how to be, uh, for example, how I could serve and still be feminine. Something that then especially was a big deal. Um,
Yeah.
I'm. It's been some years. Well, it's been almost 10 years. So, but I don't know if there's same issue with women feeling like they had to overperform. They either had to be the pretty, bat in your eye, wear makeup type, or you had to be someone who disposed of your or set aside your femininity in order to prove to others. And that one thing I wanted people to know was that that wasn't necessary. Um, because to be an effective leader means that you have to be a competent, but also a comfortable person. You have to know, you have to know yourself and be honest with yourself. Um, so the things that I learned was one, uh, aside from being unique or standing in who I was, it was also important for me to drop myself to the very lowest level and find out from those who we're teaching, we're mentoring, we're responsible for their health and welfare, but also learning from them. Some of the greatest lessons I learned in what eventually, throughout my career were from those young privates or those, young Catusas. I had a Catusa once that told me a lot about culture that helped me in a unit where specifically there wasn't many of me.
Well,
And
real quick, explain to people what a Katusa is.
so a Katusa is a Korean augmented to the United States Army. Uh, and there's a 2-year obligation that they have to serve. And you can either serve in the Republic of Korean Army, and Katusas are those that, like I said, are augmented to us.
Okay.
So, shucks.
You were talking about dropping yourself down to the lowest level, learning from the youth.
Yeah. My greatest lessons. I mean, so before I get back to that, for example, I looked up to you because I like to hear a story. I want to know why I should follow you. Why should I trust you as a leader? Or why should I, you know, uh, respect you? Or, I mean, the words that I'm trying to find, I can't really find. But the point is that once I learned about you, I sought out your advice. I learned a lot of things from what you had taught me. And here we are, like I said, this wasn't the situation a year prior because of the whole training incident, right? But I think respectfully, I just like to see how people move. It wasn't so much as challenging somebody. And those young soldiers that could go out there, that could take instruction, especially amongst leaders that shouldn't be leaders, and you know, guess it help me to determine like how I wanted to be treated, what I wanted to share. Um, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Well, I
Yeah.
could say, we've shared a lot of talks because we kind of, once we started talking about things and we became more comfortable with each other, and we actually worked with each other. There's a lot of things that we talked about that was outside of work. I mean, it's just
Mhm.
kind of how life is. But like what you're saying, I agree with that too. We all look for somebody who's experiencing the things that we're experiencing, so we can kind of go through the life, right? And I tell you this because I think that area the people that we had were powerful with
Mhm.
Springer and Walker
Mhm.
and yourself and myself, just dealing with a bunch of those things in there, and going through some of the stuff that we had to go through as it pertains to leadership. We became pretty tight, and I think what you got to always kind of be guarded though, because how the army is, right? Like you got people who are go-getters and you got people who are getters,
Mhm.
and then you just got some people that need some little bit of love, right? and
Right.
and I think being my story is similar to a story that's not commensurate with an officer in the army, if
Right.
that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? My
Mhm.
my story is one of like overcoming, or like single parent home, my mom getting beat up all the time. I'm like running down the street trying to figure out how to live in this world. With the
Mhm.
gangs, I'm in the streets, and then boom, I'm this army officer. And then I'm like, okay, kind of what you're saying when you say with the females, they got to put on this facade of who they are in order from a mental aspect of, if they don't do that, they don't succeed. I was moving through the army all the way to this point. I'm like bobbing and weaving, like, all right, I need to make them think that I'm this, like,
Right.
and not that who I was bad, but once I realized, you know what, I just got to be myself, and
You-
myself got me to this point. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, and it's not to toot your horn, but you were one of the people that really did make a significant impact in my career. And it's funny because I look back on my career and think, you know, I guess I feel like a fraud, in that there were a lot of things that I had endured growing up. We shared the fact, single parent household. Um, my mom was trying to do the best that she could, and unfortunately, as a family and as myself, in myself, the things that I experienced, I had a lot of trauma, and that trauma I found that I had encased as opposed to heal. So the
Mhm.
leader that I was back then, I always reflect back and like, but was I who I feel I am now? I really had to understand that I was giving myself a lot of credit for work I hadn't done. I had
Mhm.
gone through things and I said, okay, I survived this. And because I survived this is who I am. It wasn't really until recently, in the last few years, that I learned that all I did was, you know, I I built this fortress around all the things that I'd gone through in life. And then I figured, oh, because I survived that, that makes me an amazing person, not ever healing what was encased. And so I'm at a point in my life now where that had to be exposed. And so there were there were there were a few times specifically in my career where it helped me pivot. And like I said, I, I don't want people to be like, that's why you put her on. You taught me about finances. You taught me about investment. You taught me about your college experience, the type of parent you were, all those things in those conversations, whether I was hearing it directly from you. And the more that I learned about you, I always watched the type of leader you were and took those things that I felt were phenomenal and carried them forward in my career. So there were things that you provided that you may not have known, and if not, now, helped me to get where I was in my career. I was blessed with the opportunity to serve with um, you guys in the three shop. Uh, Springer I had known for some time. So our Major Walker, he came to us in Korea. We had Colonel Gibson, who's Major Gibson at the time. These people, I couldn't have been in a better position because I could see excellence, and combined, we were beast. Our three shop was tough, and it was because we had an array of different leaders, and you were one, like I said, that helped cement, okay, this is what I want to know so that I can pass that on to the next one, especially after being in one for four for so long. So there weren't many of you, but it did help to be the leader I was. And more than, I didn't want to be a better non-commissioned officer. I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to be a better leader in general. I wanted to be a better parent. Those are things that I honestly learned from you. And you may not even know that you had done that.
I say we learn with the intent to teach. I always tell people that, right? And I think kind of to tie into that, when you say we were beasts because all of us were trying to win. All of us were
Mhm,
trying to win. And I think now Major General Gibson, right?
mhm.
He just kind of like put all that stuff in front of us, kind of like he didn't force it on us. That's just who he was.
Mhm.
So we're like, all right, we got to get up to this level right here. We gonna
Yeah.
win in this game. And even then, Major Ogden, all of those guys. And,
Mhm.
and and I really think sometimes you just come across people that your life kind of intertwines with, right?
Mhm.
And I think you, Springer, Walker, myself, we all were kind of from the same place, and we were all like
Rochelle.
moving. Oh yeah, like even what was the young buck, young Echeverria, all those youngsters trying to learn, right? And
Hmm.
we're just moving down the path, but we value success.
We did.
And when you see someone that really cares, like you may say, "Hey, yeah, you're helping me," but I'm like looking at everybody else too. Because remember, I was the first lieutenant and I was the S3,
Right. Hmm.
and we I was in the major position, and I was like, okay, only person that's gonna get me through this is these folks right here. And
Hmm.
so we're all learning from each other, is what I'm saying. And but we were all in tune. Hence the reason that we still communicating today.
Indeed.
So like moving forward, like listen to your story. You had to be medically discharged. Like all of this stuff is going on that you got to work through. Man, you face some significant challenges, right? You have some significant challenges. Where is this strength coming from to continue to move forward? Where are you getting this from?
It's funny that you asked that because I had an issue Thursday regarding my health, and we're back to square one, right? And we're trying to get people to believe that the conditions that I was discharged for, all those, I mean, it can get complex, but the point is that the strength comes from having overcome an adversity previous. That's it. In my darkest moments, I'm talking about, I don't know how deep I can go, but when I
You
first
can go
joined the
deep as
army.
you want to go.
So, what many people may not know about me, I was a survivor of sexual assault. I was also molested at the age of 4 to 11. I had we were homeless a lot. You know, uh, there wasn't many people we could trust. My mom, she was doing everything that she could, so she had to work 2 or 3 jobs. I raised my sister. As a matter of fact, I raised 8 kids while in the army, actually, because I had took custody of my sister, all those things. And you know, I guess having survived that, even though being diagnosed with PTSD, that was my first ever diagnosis, I realized, okay, but I came through. This was what I believe to be the most horrific thing that could happen in my life. And it could go either way. It could either be, oops, you're wrong. This is the worst thing that you have been through in your life. Or it can be, this is a blessing out of this darkness. So my motivation to go on every day is that, one, I feel like there's a reason I survived all that. It cannot be, um, I couldn't have endured all that to not create something or leave something in the world. And so, even in my darkest times, Thursday was a very dark place. And I had to remember, like, you can feel this way. You're good, but don't sit in it. Don't stew in it. You feel this way, be honest. And I was. I remember telling my husband, I remember seeing his face, and you know, what I said was, I don't know if I can endure this battle again. And I woke up the next morning and said, but I can, because here we are. This was horrible, but it's a Friday now. And I survived that. I mean, only need to keep stepping forward. So it's really just because of the things that I've lived through, things that when I even tell people, they don't believe me, or they're like, why are you not this way? I didn't know that there were things that happened that weren't normal. I'm thinking, oh,
Mhm.
everybody lived with this,
Yeah,
seeing the trauma of the hood, like,
yeah,
like I said, I had a place to lay my head, but it wasn't always home. It wasn't with my mom. We were homeless and things. And when I tell people, I'm like, that's bananas. I'm like, that was just life, you know?
that was
And
yeah.
if you can do it as a child, any place, if you, no matter where you are in a place, you can see the light, or you can see the humor, which is sometimes controversial because I always can take what I've been through and, not so much joke about it, but can see the irony and the humor in it and say, okay, now you can take another step forward. You can feel this way right now. I'm giving you that. I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to say this. It needs to be said, but you got to take that next step forward. You got to take that, you got to inhale, you got to exhale. So that alone is my strength. That reminds me that until I stop breathing, I have living I got to do. And no matter how hard it is, I got to keep doing it. So that is how I've gotten through the things that I've endured.
Yeah, and that's crazy because like I'm telling you, I'm like having this deja vu moment right now because I like was talking to somebody. I was talking to two of the captains yesterday, and they were like, "Sir, why you not worried about all this?" I'm like, "Bro," I said, "I used to be walking the street picking up cans, man." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Man, I like literally, I was walking street picking up cans, trying to turn them boys in at the little truck trailer, trying to get
Yeah.
like 75 cents. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And it's all about perspective because, like, I tell people, I think I'm kind of smart, but that ain't my strength. My strength is that I can persevere. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Like this stuff right here, like the world can be on fire, and I'm like, all right, y'all, hey, Rakim, go get your hair cut because they're like I like you. I really believe I really go through life like all of this madness is normal.
Right.
All of this madness is normal because of the way we came up. Like
Yeah.
my homeboy got shot at the store and died. Right, like my homeboy overdosed from drugs and went
Hmm.
down. Like I'm at the park hooping and they come by, drive by shooting, and we jumping fences and we're
Yeah.
running. And when we get back to the house, my boy like, I think I'm bleeding. I'm like, what you mean you bleeding? He's like, look, oh, bro, you shot. Like this is
Wow.
the stuff that's happening. So when I'm in the army and somebody was like, that op order didn't get published, I'm like, all right, man, let's get that right.
Yeah,
Because
that's easy. That's easy work.
that's
Come to
easy
me
work.
when the
That's
burn.
easy work.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
easy
and you
stuff.
saying you're going through all this trauma, and you saying like, well, I didn't even know this wasn't supposed to be happening. I thought this was part of the
Exactly.
course.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, man, I identify with your story, but that's why we're here today, right? Because the perspective, those things, those people who saw you move forward, accomplish things, stay steadfast, get your awards, make it through the army. Even though you got discharged, still pick it back up and keep it going. Somebody out there who don't believe that they can do that. Somebody
That's true.
out there who didn't have your perspective today. And now they're like, oh shit, that this is a person that I might need to like take a look at and look into. But before we keep you moving forward, let's go do a quick commercial break and we'll come back and we'll continue the conversation.
All right.
Hey, it's AC of AC Sports Live, an interactive sports talk show where your comments are part of the show. Every show we focus on the sports stories of today with commentary on sports takes, my 2 cents, which is a reaction to my social media feed, Sports Flicks, where we take a look at sports movies and give a quick review. We have a segment called Mental Reps, where we have words of inspiration to help battle the dark side of men's mental health. And then there's the Tender Love Report. Who's being soft or petty in the world of sports? All takes are welcome under one condition. Say it with your chest. I'll see you there.
All right, Ayauna, like one of the personal messages you had, talked about the importance of kindness to oneself, during tough times, you got to stay in the game. What, what do you mean by that? Well, what's the personal experience where, your mindset helped you? I know we already talked a little bit about overcoming, but like, is there anything specific, like when you hit a difficult period, is there anything specific you're like, all right, woosah, let me get this thing going that you build upon or you look back to?
Definitely what I look back to. It's the whole be kind to yourself. Actually, it's crazy. So I was paying a bill, and the woman who was taking the payment, she said, "Have a good day on purpose." That was her way of, on sign off. And I said, that, I mean, that was just so profound,
Profound.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's minutes in my life that encapsulate who I've become now, and that was clearly one of them. It was so like paying a phone bill, and she said, "Have a good day on purpose." And and what I took from that was I I get to control my reaction
Mm. Yeah.
and also how I feel. I understand that, it can feel like your feelings are overwhelming, right? But there's always this choice that we have and how we react to that. And so I call it the day that my brain broke. Um, Separate from that instance, I realized I was in crisis, and Uh, I was out of this medication. Husband was out of town. It was just me. I hadn't slept in 48 hours, and
Mm.
it had come from a change in medication. Um, I was distraught. You know, I had no motivation. I just could not pull it together. And then I said to myself, do you want to do this for another 24 hours? Or do you just really want to be like, hey, we've been here before. 48 hours, it's long, but you've been through, close to what you've been, you know, just we know that there's something, this I'm talking to myself out loud. Okay, you can't go to sleep. It's okay. Watch TV. Go look on your phone. Just be kind to yourself. We can fix this. This is, this doesn't have to end um, with the same anxiety and fear that it began with. And so from that point, laying in the bed, haven't been out of bed for days, I said, it's it's okay. You you know, be easy on yourself. You're here after all that you've endured. You're not healthy. You're not, what others consider healthy to be. And, you know, I'm allowed that moment. And that was very profound because it was days before I could even get to the doctor that I needed to, renew this medication. It was such a silly thing. But like I said, I'd been up for 48 hours, and I said, I can either make this another grueling 48 hours or I can start thinking about it differently. And so be kind to yourself really has become the ethos. Like, hey, I know you don't want to get up and do this thing. And if you can't, you can't. Just celebrate the victory. I'm aware my mind is attached to my body at a time where that wasn't very often. And so now when I look at it, I can be grateful for all moments. I can find the beauty and the grace in everything because at the very base, the very core, I'm at a place of peace. I'm not feeling bad for the way I feel. And it helped me to really like analyze it and put in motion the steps I need to to feel better. So when I have a bad day or if I do something wrong, instead of steeping in it, a term that I always use, I can genuinely say, if you wake up, an hour later or tomorrow morning, you can fix that. So it's okay to take a knee as long as you don't, fall over with the guide on.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned in your notes earlier, waking up can be a victory.
Mhm.
You know, like do you have a routine that you follow? I use this quote. I say, hey, if you listen to this message right now, that means you woke up this morning, so therefore you are winning. And a lot of people are like, oh man, you're like you came up with this good quote. I'm like, nah, bro. 2 Chainz said, if you wake up this morning, you winning. I just told you what 2 Chainz said. You know what I mean?
That's
so,
funny.
so waking up can be a victory. How do you win? How did Ayauna win?
Um, well, with dealing with both mental health and physical disabilities, winning is it really, I mean, honestly, it is just that simple. I get up, I see where my brain is, how my body feels, um, I don't want to get up and take a shower, don't want to eat, I don't want to, but still, the victory is that's an experience, but it's not the end all be all. I get up in the morning, like I said, I do that check. I see if my ADHD or my OCD is in control, if they're, coexisting, getting along. They never do. It doesn't ever cross each other out, unfortunately. Um, even days, man, I mean, because it's crazy. People see me on social media and they know I'm always cracking jokes and things like that. But sometimes I have symptoms that can be so severe that if the next day it's less severe, then that's a victory I can go forward with. And so I don't have much of a routine other than, that self check and deciding that I'm going to have a good day on purpose.
Yeah, have a good day on purpose. Checking yourself, you
Mhm.
just being your authentic you,
Yeah.
and I got it. Sometimes some people are just out here surviving, and surviving is the lowest form of living, and I say that because once again, you can hide in the corner and just hope nothing happens to you. And sometimes those people outlast everybody else because those people who are warriors are like, I'm going into the fight.
Indeed.
And sometimes they don't make it out of there, and then you come back, and the person left was the one that's just trying to survive, right? Because they stayed out of the fray.
Yeah.
But for so people who are watching today, and dealing with their own struggles, what advice would you give them? Like if someone came to you and said, "Hey, man, I watched the show. Man, you went through a lot I was unaware of, but you woke up this morning and you still here. How do I fight the fight? What would you say?"
Um, First, I'd say that that is the first step. I had to go to someone and say, I've endured this. How do I get through it? That um, is what set in motion, a change. And just having someone ask that, it's then the person that you've asked or the people that care are now aware, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
because again, if you're being your authentic self, that comes with transparency. You can pretend to be someone else, but I always believed in being, very transparent with what I was going through. And so in that, there's something that we can work with. If you say, I I've been through this too, and I don't want to do this anymore. Well, gold star, because now we can get going. Now we know. Sergeant Major, I cannot remember his name, and it breaks my heart. He passed away. He was our sergeant major while we were in hood. But he once told me that you should always ask why 5 times, at a minimum 5 times, and you can get to the root of a problem. So that is something that I tell other people, ask yourself why. If you say, I woke up and this is the worst day of my life, why? Our lights were turned off. Why? Because, there was a storm, or I don't have a great job, or, I, I'm going through this. I don't have the capacity to be an adult. Why? Why? You break it down to its lowest common denominator, to where all that exists is this very poignant but straight to the point issue. And from there, I think that you can then experience a peace, like, okay, what is next? So letting someone know, um, and being honest with yourself, uh, is probably what is most important, because so many people feel they have to put that to the side. All I do am like, you don't know how many times a day I can call myself a dirtbag. I talk to myself all the time, and I'm like, come on, Ayana, you could do that better, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But that's with having done the work and saying, you really weren't who you thought you were before. This Ayana, to those who know me, when I look back at 26-year-old Ayana, 26-year-old Ayana really didn't know shit, to be quite honest. I thought I
Yeah.
did, you know. 44-year-old Ayana is saying, oh, okay, I see where I was trying to go. This is where I am. So to be honest and to be vulnerable, you know, I guess that's hard to do with social media. A lot of times that's the reason I'm off of it. But if somebody was to ask me, that is always where I start. No matter who asks me, as a matter of fact, um, because that would happen a lot, when I was in 144 and then got the diagnosis, both the diagnosis of OCD and ADHD. I remember telling, the chain of command, and it wasn't something that I had to tell them in depth, but I did. And they started bringing people who had these questions, or someone had asked and said, hey, I'm going to this. So sometimes I have someone within our leadership, sometimes very, high up there in our leadership, bring people to me because I was like, help me. I'm laying myself bare. I know I got my uniform on. It's the only thing keeping me together. That was what, helped as well. So when somebody is reaching out for help, that's when all hands really got to go in, and it can be subtle, you know, uh, and that's where asking why comes in, because we want people to believe we're living this life and holding this pain. And it's always the funniest and the prettiest, these people that you would never imagine enduring what they're going through, feeling like they have to maintain that. And at that point of vulnerability, at that point where you're almost at rock bottom or have hit it, it's only up from there. And I believe the only way we get there is with somebody reaching down and saying, hey, let me help you bring that knee up so you can climb up out there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely agree. And sometimes, us as senior leaders, like it's hard to like reach out for help, because if you want to reach out for help, then somebody like, oh, Ray got a problem. And then
Right.
you start thinking about your career progression. So it's like kind of like this false dichotomy when you start talking about getting help. I'm like, it's okay to help other people, but if you go out there and say, hey, I need some help, then now people are starting to question your ability to continue to move forward. I don't know how much. So I was listening to this thing about Command Sergeant Major Macri's story about like his life and all the stuff that he was going through and all this craziness. And like he's just upfront. He's just like, hey, this happened to me. I've been divorced this time, and I was feeling like this, and I thought about killing myself. Like, he had all of this stuff going on, right? And I would say, I guess, fortunately enough, he had people who cared and understood that, like, hey, you can go get some help, and you can still be a winner.
It's
Because
funny that
sometimes
you.
go
Oh no,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
saying. I was saying it's funny that you mentioned that, because I knew Macri. I remember when he was being inducted into, like, to the the NCO Corps. He was a corporal. He was. I met him in Germany, and I watched his career, and here he is, this amazing leader. There was no question. Matter of fact, as a corporal, he corrected a behavior that I was portraying when I was out at CMTC. I remember that clearly too. So I know him, and most people, you would think, how can you attain this having endured that? It is probably one of the greatest blessings to be in air defense, since we are such a, it was such a small community in general, because again, you can look at somebody and say, this is possible. We know this person. We've seen this person. And knowing a lot that he had gone through, it's no surprise he is the amazing leader he became, to have attained those. And I also know those that help play a role in helping him to get there. And so I can totally agree. I just want, just in case he's looking, hey, glad you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
You hear that, man, Major Macri, she's proud of you. I'm proud of you, bro. Now, I just think it's like one of those things, you like listen, you're like, man, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like, man, that dude's like me. I remember I posted something on social media one time, and like he wrote me. He like got right in my inbox. I'm like, yo, bro, I went through that same thing, and he broke it down, right? And I'm like, because I haven't seen him in a long time, and he just like straight up wrote me. But then the crazy thing about it, when I was a professor of military science at the University of North Alabama, he shared his story with my cadets. Came over to Zoom, talked to them for like an hour and something, and was like just telling him his story. And sometimes the youngsters think when they're coming up that they can't be fallible. They think that they got to be perfect. And but we kind of put those parameters in there, like, yo, if you want to be this dude, you gotta you gotta put the test out. You gotta go out there and get a 300 on the APLT, man. You got to pass all the boards if you want to be a winner. But that's not the case. The case is that you just gotta want it, and you just need to endure if you really want it. Let's go to the final commercial break, and we'll come back and we'll start winding this thing up.
Okay.
Focus up. Hey man, zoom in. Hey. Welcome. My name is Chris Rubio of the Rubio Method. Soak it in. Wear it as a nice sweatshirt, a nice yellow sweatshirt. See if it fits. And it may be something you say, okay, I'm listening to you, but I don't really like it. Not for me. What the hell are you thinking? You have no idea what you're talking about. You have issues because of your bad taste.
All right, Ayauna. So, man, today's discussion has been very powerful. I really appreciate you coming on and everything. So, my question to you, right, in your journey, dealing with everything you had to deal with, your battles with physical abuse, emotional abuse. How do you define resilience, and like what practices do you got for folks?
Well, most people don't realize that resilience isn't just the end result, that it's a process. And I can say that resilience, the road to resilience is a little rocky, right? And depending on what you've endured determines, like you said, there were times where, you've gone through something and immediately you can apply what you knew, and you're figuring out. So, it can be awful and you're like, yeah, I got it. I've been through that. So let me get it. Or, this is something that I haven't, I've never encountered. So it can take longer. And in that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the road to resilience is most important than the actual end result. Because if you're taking from it the lessons that you should, it allows you to, when again, that upcoming obstacle arrives, for you to be able to take command, settle yourself, how to operate. Everything's at your hands. You're at the control. So in terms of resilience, it's just about doing the work. And it's okay if you start off low crawling. It's okay as you start off on your back. And what you need to first do is roll over. It's okay that, there's miles you must, crawl through. There's glass that, or scraping your arm. It isn't that yellow brick road. Know though that each breath gets you to that end state that empowers you, that gives you that knowledge. And in order to remain resilient or to overcome, any obstacle, it's just about assessing the situation. So if it is the worst that you need to go to, you have to go through that fire. Otherwise, you're masking, with the thought, or you're convincing others, I'm resilient. And it's nothing more than just talk. It's nothing more than sound. Resilience is the whisper that becomes the roar. Resilience is the even if that light is so small, it's that glimmer. And so wherever you are on that journey, just know that once you come through, and that resilience now is the end result, don't get comfortable in that either, because you're saying, okay, I've endured this, and then when things get more difficult and you're not kind to yourself, you're feeling like you're a failure, as long as you understand that it's both a journey and a result, and it's really never, definitive. I mean, it's a constant process throughout your life. And if you understand that, it helps you to get perspective of what you're going through, or what you've gone through, and how to move forward.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for sharing that. So if I was somebody out there watching the show today, how do I get in touch with Ayauna Barnes, and so you can give them some good feedback of how you made it through?
You can always reach me on Facebook. That Ayauna Barnes. So it's my Instagram. I think it's an Ayauna_Barnes_. But I have to say this. You can also reach me at A Barnes, that's with an ES, at soldiersangels.org. And why do I say this? Well, you may not be affiliated with the military, or you can be coming. You're here, maybe just in observance. You probably know someone who can use the benefits of this. So if you write me at A Barnes at Soldiers Angels, I have the opportunity to share with you the nonprofit that is Soldiers Angels, how it could be a benefit to you and to others, lessons that I've learned through there. So you can reach me there too. And I mean, I guess I'll give my email address, which is Ayauna@gmail.com. It's the one I get 10,000 messages a day, but I know you reach there, you're there. So yeah, you can get me there, A Barnes, BARNES, at soldiers with an S, angels.org. And I'd be more than happy to let you know, to hear your story. You can hear mine. We can help change the world. You can help make a contribution. I can learn something from you. I'm always looking for the next person that helps me in my own journey as well. So that's how they can get in touch with me.
All right, everyone. Today we had Ayauna Barnes. You heard how to get a hold of her. Ma'am, thank you for coming and being part of the show. Really appreciated your message, and you did a wonderful job. So with that being said, on to the next one. We'll see you all out there later.
Indeed.
Listen.